Already we have seen the impact of the pandemic, and we have seen how important it was to have a fully equipped and capitalized healthcare system. And to get a capitalized healthcare system calls for investment, and investment in the human capital, investment in the infrastructure, and of course, investment in science. And if we had got this together, I mean, we did get some of it right because Africa has so far been spared of the worst case scenario from the pandemic. But if we are going to go further, if we are going to address prosperity through food security, through water security, through energy security, we will have to look at the science space and also the tool of science to make it become a wealth creating mechanism. And if I take, for example, only agriculture on the African continent, we are talking about land space of 60% of the arable land of the world here in Africa. And if we now add technology and science, and of course, train human capital, we are already looking at a sector which can bring $1 trillion business to the continent. So definitely we need more empowerment of young people because Africa is the youngest continent, more empowerment of women because women feed Africa. So we need to make sure that she has access to capital, she has access to technology, she has access to information, because she can really push this sector forward and, of course, reduce poverty.
If that's the case, how important is it there should be gender parity in Africa, which certainly isn't the case at the moment, if that's a key component of alleviating poverty?
Gender parity, I think, is an issue worldwide. We know that having a bird flying with one wing is not possible. So for any economy to prosper, we need to factor in the female component, and no less than 50%, because otherwise we'll be talking about quota of 30%. So we need to factor in the female ingenuity, because it is no longer an ethical thing to do or a moral thing to do. It makes economic sense. So we need to bring in the women competence on board so that we can emerge faster and stronger post-COVID.
Certainly gender parity is a problem for Africa, but can you give me some examples perhaps of success stories where female empowerment is having a major impact on poorer communities?
Well, as I said, first of all, the issue of the female issue, we're doing quite well on the continent. We already have got 5 female presidents on the continent. We already have 2 actually in post. In fact, if you look at the United States, they just managed to get 1 vice president. In terms of empowerment, as I said, if I consider only agriculture, and if you look at the informal sector, we have 80% of the jobs occupied by women. So one thing we'll have to do is relook at the informal sector so that we can really empower them, because in the COVID era, we found that these women were highly vulnerable because they could not get access to the stimulus package that government could bring to them because they didn't have the infrastructure. So already in the informal sector, in the food sector, in the textile sector, and many manufacturing sectors, they are essentially driven by women. So this is, and we know that the informal sector is a very, very important component of the economy of Africa. So we have to really, kind of surround them with the appropriate infrastructure, the tool, the information, and more importantly, the education. So if we get this right, we'll be addressing not just gender parity, gender justice as well, because we need to make sure that our girls have access to all the best that this world can offer, so that we can really pull together and rise and get the continent out of this absolute poverty that some parts of Africa still experience.
You are one of the most eminent female politicians in the world, a former president of Mauritius. You're a member of an exclusive club of women who have led their countries. What advice would you give to young women on the continent of Africa, indeed around the world, so they can push for better representation in what many consider to be a gender-biased world?
Interesting you should ask this question, because what I'm going to say may seem paradoxical. But women have among themselves the worst foes. The worst enemies to women are women themselves. So the message I have for them is that when a woman is out there, let us make sure that we, as a community of women, we strive to leave her there for as long as possible, because when she's out there shining, she becomes a beacon and a message, and of course, a very powerful role model for others to rise, the younger generations to rise. So let us all take each other by the hand and rise together.
Several years ago, you said this: those nations that go all in on innovation today will own the global economy tomorrow. Do you think that's still the case? And who do you think currently owns the global economy? And how does that inform the fight against poverty?
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to take the example of China. China opened up to the world in 1978 under the leadership of Deng Xiaoping. In fact, the Chinese Communist Party is celebrating its 100 years of existence. But Deng Xiaoping opened the economy, and the same can be said for India in the 1990s when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh opened the economy. And we have seen the phenomenal progression of China. And in fact, not too far, last couple of weeks, we've seen China heading towards space. Now, just imagine a country coming out of the cold, 1978, to where we are today. They have moved from famine. They have removed millions of people out of absolute poverty. This is well before the MDGs were implemented. So China has done phenomenally well. Maybe there are a few pages that we have to take from its book. And the same thing happened when India emerged, because India emerged when they opened the economy, when they realized that investment is no longer needed in hard infrastructure, when they could just move with the brain capacity of their people. And in fact, as we speak today, over 40% of the human capital powering Silicon Valley, United States, they are Indians. So they're Asian, actually. So this is, I think, what we have, the lessons we have to learn from how these countries did it, coming from a very low base, and now, really driving the agenda of science, technology, innovation across the world.
Indeed, I saw exactly that when I went to Silicon Valley, and I saw the nature of all, and where all the workers came from at Oracle, for example. But you mentioned China and India, and you've mentioned innovation. What type of leadership is needed to embrace not just innovation and technological change, but also investment, which you've also said? What type of leadership can embrace all of those factors to beat poverty?
We need increasingly, because I come from the space of science, I would be very tempted to say that we need a technocratically led leadership where they can understand the value of investing in the ecosystem that will provide a space for young people to actually test their ideas, and a leadership that can understand that the power and, of course, the wealth of a nation resides in the mind of the people, and for Africa, it is not the mines. And this is the kind of leadership that we need. But more importantly for Africa, because I always say we speak from the vantage point of 60 years post-independent history on average, we have to really look at ourselves as a nation, as a people, as an African nation, African people, to see where our riches are, where our culture resides, and how we can decolonize our brain and our mind and value our own culture and value our own heritage. I think all leaders have said, if you don't know where you came from, you will not know where you're heading to. So let us take stock of what we have received from our forebears and plow ahead.
Now, let's stay with education and science, two vital components to beat poverty. You once told a newspaper this, quote, "Countries that have invested in education have managed to break the cycle of poverty." And despite many campaigns over the years to get women educated, we still don't have enough women, especially in the developing world, going into science. What can be done about that? And how would that change the world if there was a more level playing field there?
Well, my country led by example. we made education free in 1976, and we became independent from Britain in 1968. And by the 1980s, those very ladies who were cutting sugarcane, they were those people who could actually manipulate and handle machine in the fledgling free zone, where the textile sector started to set foot. So we made it free for all and for both genders. So when that happened, parents no longer had to feel they were making an economic sacrifice by educating the girls, because it didn't make economic sense to educate a girl, because the culture is such that she would be married off and leave the family, and the boy had to have priority. So when this happened, I mean, to me, that was a game changer. And we went the extra mile, because we also provided social safety net to our people. And to me, education, yes, health also was free, but the social safety net was also a game changer, and it is still valid today. And now, how do we move into the space of science, technology, innovation? This is where I, in my own little way, I helped create the very first biopark in my country, where I could translate my research results or research finding from academia into an enterprise. And if we get more such initiative, we can find that the youth of Mauritius will become job creators as opposed to job seekers.
Academia to innovation and enterprise. That's a wonderful example and a great ambition too. Just finally, Ameenah, are you confident? You know your way around academia and innovation and enterprise, that we are winning the war against poverty around the world?
No, I'm afraid we are not winning the war on poverty. And I think the past year we have seen the development gains that the developing world had made had been wiped off with the COVID. And to me, the biggest challenge is addressing inequality. And the chasm, which is separating the have and the have-not, is getting bigger and wider. But still, I think measures are being taken. And I have also said this many times, that we need less philanthropy, but more taxes. People have to learn to pay the taxes. It's only with tax dollars and tax rupees or tax pound that countries will be able to bring into the social cause and address social justice. So up until that leadership comes on board and takes the bull by the horn, we will still be having this conversation 10 years down the line.
Well, let's hope not, and hopefully people will pay their taxes. Dr. Ameenah Gurib-Fakim, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.